What does the pelican mean anyway? Well, in Manly P. Hall's book, it represents the sun feeding its children in the mysteries of the secret societies. We know that the peacock in India represents the sun god, or the bearer of the gods, and the Yazidis believe that it represents Satan. And here it is in Westminster Cathedral. The ancients worshipped the dead. That was their worship. They didn't know a living God. They only believed that their gods once lived on earth and ascended to the heavens. The Pantheon in Rome was a place where people gathered to worship the astrological gods. Those gods have been transferred to the Vatican, that holds the largest collection of pagan antiquities in the world. This concept of worshiping the dead has been adopted in the church as saint worship. Here we see that in Egypt they had 365 gods, one for each day of the year. Did you know that in Roman Catholicism there is a saint for every day of the year? A saint for every occupation? Every one of those saints at one time or another is a reflection of some pagan deity. As you go into the churches, you'll find that there are sarcophaguses of the dead everywhere you go. In fact, I believe that the church itself is the world of the dead. This great altar in Burgos Cathedral, though it's magnificent and 4 stories high with saints all over it, is nothing more than a continuation of the worship of the dead. The popes are embalmed and placed in caskets, 3 inside each other, placed beneath the floor of St. Peter's Basilica, and there the people gather to pay them homage, to do their rosaries before them and kiss their caskets. Indeed, even some of the smallest cathedrals and churches have beneath the floors places in the old world where they buried their dead. Notice on this cylinder seal from 2,500 years before Christ that this priest is holding something that looks like little balls in its hands. Reliefs from Babylon and Mesopotamia show the priests and the genii holding beads in their hands. Yes, beads was part of the worship of Babylon. Here, from the Pergamum Museum, these beads were taken from the Babylonian bull cult. Or these beads of Pharaoh Amenhotep IV were buried with him in his grave. They were prayer beads. And throughout Egypt we find them in the graves as a special part of the worship of those people. In India, the Hindu religion and the Buddhist religion all used beads in their prayers. Even in the Muslim world, we find that prayer beads were an important part of the worship of Allah. And when you see prayer beads in the church, you know, as a matter of fact, that they are from the pagan worship. They have no place in Christianity. Candles represent the immortality of the soul. The fire was the earthly representative of the sun. It was ever to be kept burning in the pagan temples, such as this Buddhist pagan temple. But when you look at the altars in Catholicism today, there's not even a faint reflection of paganism. It's an absolute image of the pagan world before. People spend a lot of money buying candles to place before altars of saints who can't hear or see them. Incense is offered up around the altars during the Mass and during the ceremonies of Catholicism, in the same way that incense is offered up in the Orient in Hinduism centuries before. But the strangest part of Catholicism is its veneration of a human priesthood. In the book Dignities and Duties of the Priest, or Silva, we find that St. Alphonsus de Liguori gives the doctrinal view of the position of the priest. We find in obedience to the word of his priest, hoc est corpus meum, God himself descends on the altar, that he comes wherever they call him and as often as they call him, and places himself in their hands, even though they should be his enemies. And after having come, he remains entirely at their disposal. They move him as they please from one place to another. They may, if they wish, shut him up in the tabernacle, expose him on the altar, or carry him outside the church. They may, if they wish, if they choose, eat his flesh and give him for the food of others. Oh, how great is their power! The people have to come to the priest to receive the sacrifice of Christ. The power of the priest is the power of the divine person, for the transubstantiation of the bread requires as much power as the creation of the world. Thus, the priest may be called the creator of his creator. The idea that Jesus is recreated and his sacrifice duplicated in every wafer is an abomination. The priest is the most sublime of all created dignities, an infinite dignity, an astounding miracle, great, immense, and infinite, exalted above all celestial heights. He is inferior only to God. The priests in this position stand in the very place that the pagan priests did of the ancient world. Christ never initiated an earthly priesthood. A priest, in absolving a sinner, performs the very office of the Holy Ghost in the sanctification of souls. To see people lined up to confess to an earthly man, feeling that they'll receive sanctification or forgiveness because of that act, is one of the saddest things. Innocent III has written, "Indeed, it is not too much to say that in view of the sublimity of their offices, the priests are so many gods." How could it be that men could be so blinded? But we realize that that form of Catholicism that we see today came out of raw pagan idolatry. As priests were set aside for the worship of God, so women were set aside in the ancient temples as Vestal Virgin or priestesses. Today we find young girls are prepared for a female form of priesthood, the nuns. The nuns in the open convents appear to do many wonderful things, but in the closed convents they're used by the priests. There they suffer, and there they die, and never allowed to see their family or their friends again. We don't fully understand what goes on behind the closed doors of those convents, but someday I pray to God that they'll be opened up and the truth will be revealed. The wearing of towers symbolized the rulership of the heavens, earth, and the underworld, the great tower builder, the Pont Maximus, and this is the name of the Pope. It's to be seen over doorways and on tombs throughout the Vatican. Names of the Pope: I the Church, I the Church, I the Church, I the Church, to add up to the name, or to add up to the number 666, such as this name Vicarius Filii Dei, the Vicar of God. In Latin it adds up to 666. On this sacred door we see that each of the popes were 666 gods. This door has crests for each of the popes since it was put in, and notice those crests. Why, in each one of those crests are the number 666, 3 B's, 3 fleur-de-lises, 6 pointed stars. Latinos, or the Latin-speaking man, adds up to 666 in the Greek language. That man allows himself to be carried as God on the Sedia Gestoria in Peter's Basilica. And here we see the Pope sitting on a throne with a zodiac band around the top of it. Dux Cleri, captain of the clergy, equals 666. Ludovicus, vicar of the court, adds up to 666. Anciently, Zeus presided over the circle of the zodiac. Atlas held up the zodiac, both symbols of the 666 God. But here on this publication, published in Rome in 1527, Pope Clement is seen sitting on the zodiac. One part of the universe turned by a devil, and the other part of the universe turned by an angel. The Pope here is being depicted on this book of astrological charts as the 666 God, the ruler of the zodiac, the God of both good and evil. Italica Ecclesia adds up in the Greek language to 666, the Italian church. The center of that church is St. Peter's Basilica in Rome today, and as you get up above and you look down over the colonnade, you'll see that it's surrounded by solar symbols. A Latina Basilica, the Latin kingdom, adds up to 666 again. That kingdom is symbolized on this coin from 1825 as a woman sitting upon a globe with a band around it. The church itself is the 666 God. Who is the God of Roman Catholicism? It looks like Jesus, but it is a counterfeit of the true God. And on this altar in the Jesuit chapel in San Francisco are 6 occult symbols of the sun representing the God of the Mass. In St. Peter's, in the Vatican in Rome, we notice this monstrance with 3 little letters under the case. SFS, Sos, Stigma Sos, are 3 hieroglyphs for the number 6. The people don't realize when they bow down and when they worship this system and when they see this man at their head that they're really bowing down to that 666 God. In the Greek transliteration of the name, Satan adds up to the number 666. We understand, and it's clear, that the system of Catholicism is in fact the beast of Revelation. What is its mark? Going back, we find that God gave mankind a mark or a sign of His own authority. That sign resides in the Sabbath.